wrestling if you're ready to care. Oh, let's talk power, let's talk speed. Hosted by the one and only WeTooDeep. Turn it up loud, feel the power in your seed. This is slapping me, yes, slapping me.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? It is your boy, WeTooDeep, and we are back with another episode of the Slapping Meat Wrestling podcast. And it's a spicy one. I have a feeling y'all are going to like this one a lot. If you're new here, my name is WeTooDeep. I am the host. On Tuesdays, I have my co-host DJ Wavy D here. We sit and we talk about the week of wrestling from Tuesday to Tuesday. And then on Fridays, well, that's where I come in and I just post and say my hot. I don't want to necessarily say hot takes, right? My well thought out, whether it's a rant or an opinion that I have, and we just sit here and we talk about some of the news, some of the other things, and maybe necessarily don't make it onto the Tuesday show, right? Special announcement for Tuesday coming up is the Backlash review show. Backlash is tomorrow. We have the Backlash review show on Tuesday, me, Wavy D, and we're going to have a special guest, right? I joined a podcast promotion group chat on X, right? A wrestling podcast promotion where, like, essentially, hey, you subscribe to me, I subscribe to you, post your links, we'll right? With the hopes of maybe growing a fan base some way, right? Hey, you follow me, I follow you, you subscribe to my podcast on YouTube, I subscribe to you, type thing, right? And I said this because, and I do mean this, right? I'm going to say this later in the show, but I want to foster an environment where, whether you're hardcore or casual, you're allowed on the show. And I want to host a conversation, right? So I posted this big open invitation. Anyone in that group chat could come on to the show. You just had to email me. That way we can keep this professional, right? And so we're going to have, he goes by the EVP CJP on Twitter, X. He's going to be on the show for the Backlash review. It's going to be interesting because I haven't really heard a lot of his stuff. So I'm not exactly certain what we're going to get, but it's going to be a fun conversation either way. You know, Wavy D can bring an environment. I'm able to adapt, right? That's the key to success, right? Being able to adapt to change. And so we're going to have him on. I'm taking names already for the end of the year show. We might have the biggest panel we've ever had. We had 6 last year. Or 5. Me, Steel Chair, Twan, which is always invited back. Wavy D, Nerdy D, Cody, James. Yeah, so there were 6 of us. Last year, we might have to record this on a different program. The program that I used to typically record is only out 6 names. 100% fine sending out a Zoom link, right? And getting as many people. So if you're a podcaster and you listen to this, WeTooDeep at junkyardmediagroup.com. That's the email. Let me know you want to be on the end of the year show. Let's plan this to be the biggest one ever. Let's get all of let's get all of our collective, communities and audiences together, and let's have a great time. That's still 7 months away, but let's go. I'm planning this thing out to be the biggest thing ever. But with that being said, That's the housekeeping. As always, like, share, subscribe to the links in the description. Our Fanatics WWE shop affiliate link. Go get your merchandise through that. If you're booking a vacation or you're trying to, figure out how to get to SummerSlam after spending $40,000 for the all access on location package, you shouldn't be on Expedia anyway because they give you the flight for that, right? Or at least they better for that price. But if you're trying to get to SummerSlam because they got some cheap tickets, you get your hotel and your flight through Expedia through our affiliate link in the description. Support the podcast. And as always, I mean this, the biggest way you can support the show is going to the YouTube link, right? If you listen on audio, do me a favor. The YouTube link is, go to the YouTube link. The easiest way to get to the YouTube link is that's what I post in the Discord. So just go ahead and join the Discord, right? Go to the YouTube link and just leave a comment. I don't care what it says, right? Leave a comment. That is what YouTube uses to put the show into the recommendeds, right? So I need y'all to start commenting on this, right? It doesn't need to be anything profound. It doesn't need to be, you could just say, bro, what a great show. Or you could literally just say, hey. But we need to start getting comments on these, right? Hit the like button as well. Only if you like the show. If you dislike the show, do me a favor, hit that dislike button. That's fine. But hit it twice, right? If you're listening to audio, Spotify or Apple Podcasts or any of the other smaller iHeartRadios or whatever like that, if there's a feature for you to subscribe, hit that. If there's a feature for you to leave a review, do that. Reviews are how the audio podcast can get into their algorithm. So I definitely need y'all to leave a review for me to let me know how you guys are enjoying the podcast. With that being said, let's get into the actual content of the show. And I've spent a lot of the time here on this podcast as we're approaching episode 281. I've spent a lot of the time since 2022 when I started this podcast explaining my point of view as the casual point of view, right? I do believe that I'm a casual fan, and I made an entire what would be called a bonus episode, right? It's not on YouTube. It's only on audio. It was very early in the podcast. I made this bonus episode. That's technically not a numbered episode, right? And it's still on audio. You can still listen to it. It's all the way back in season 2, 2023. So you're gonna have to scroll a bit, because 2024 was a big year. In 2020, I mean, this was like middle of 2023. So I mean, you probably have at least 140 episodes to scroll past. But there's a bonus episode. I think it's labeled like "What does it mean to be casual fan" or whatever, right? And on it, I still believe in probably 90% of what I said there. Just a little secret as a podcaster. I don't remember most of what I say, right? And it's not that I don't believe it. It's not that right? But I get on this mic and I work best. So I'm going to pull back the curtain a little bit in a couple different places, right? In the first place is I don't remember 90% of what I say on a week-to-week basis, right? So if you come up with receipts of you remember when you said this, now you said this, I'm just going to be honest with you. First off, my opinions change with new information, and so I reserve the right for my opinions to change. But second, there's a lot of things that I may have said 3 years ago. I have zero clue. And if you have the memory, like I don't remember 90% of what I do in my day on a day-to-day basis. I just don't, right? So now you're asking me to remember something that I said on a podcast that I've done 282 of, right? And so, absolutely not happening, right? Not happening at all. I just don't remember, right? But I'm gonna pull back the curtain the other way. On Tuesday, I asked Wavy D how he liked my Saturday episode that I did last week, where I went over the WWE releases, and one of the things that he said on Tuesday was he liked the flow of how it flowed. So let's pull back the curtain on that episode a little bit. The reason it flowed so well is because I wanted to try something out. Typically, when I get on the microphone here, I'm just rambling, right? It's just I have these topics. I'm just gonna say what comes to my head. That's what the last 10 minutes have been, right? 11 minutes now, right? Just me rambling, right? And I think it's gone well, right? And but with that episode, I wanted to get to the point because there was a point that I wanted to make with that episode. And so I tried something. And I wrote down my thoughts in my notes app, right? The points that I wanted to make. And then I said, I went to Chat GTP and I said, make this into a script. And I was, and because, and here's the trouble with that is that Chat GTP is still very far behind in terms of like it's not up to date, accurate as of today. I don't know the time, how far behind it is. It's got to be several months because it still thinks Gunther is Intercontinental Champion. That's how far behind it is, right? A few months because he lost that He lost that last WrestleMania, so it's at least a year behind, right? And so you have to be super specific with Chat GTP when it comes to talking about modern today type stuff, right? Because Chat GTP wasn't meant to be a resource for who won today's baseball game, right? That's what Siri is for, or whatever Android has. If you have an Android, I'm sorry. But ChatGPT was more so meant to be, what's the circumference, or what's the formula for a circumference of a circle given these parameters or whatever, right? Or it's meant to do like research stuff. So like I do a lot of like historical research, or I'll have a random thought, right? Because that's what I have throughout the day of like, this and that, you know, if we lived under the conditions of ancient Rome, how would our society be different today in America, right? Or something like that, right? And it would give you an answer to that. That's an interesting search. I'm probably gonna have to go search now, right? Never searched it, but it's an interesting topic, right? Or Kara asked on Tuesday's episode in one of the questions from the Discord, like, what are some of the things WeTooDeep and Wavy D like to do for fun outside of partying and clubbing and podcasting, right? Well, I have a little known secret that on the side here, WeTooDeep likes to attempt to make music. Not very good at it. And so, and when I say I'm not very good at it, I'm not very good at writing, right? When I sit down to try to write a song or a rap or whatever, right? Because a lot of it is rap music, I'll be honest. When I sit there, I literally go brain dead, right? I go brain dead. And so I've always said, and I've always said this. I said this to one person when I was a little kid, or like not little, but like in middle school when I first started to write like raps and stuff. And they were like, "Oh, you might want to, make it big." And I'm like, "I struggle with writing. It takes me so long to write." I said, if I had someone who could write what I was thinking in rap form, I can get on a microphone and spit it pretty damn decently. But I just need someone to write it for me. Because I'll be honest, my vocabulary, Eminem's so good at rap because he literally read through the dictionary. So he knew words, right? My vocabulary is so little compared to what it probably should be. I just have no intention of learning the super big words or anything like that, right? But I also I just one when I do sit down, like my mind just it's wired to go super quick, and so I can't focus on like, okay, we got to write this song. And so, guys, Chat GTP is my secret to how I write songs. Right? I'll put in again. I want to now. My favorite style of rap is boom bap. So every time that like I'm not the biggest fan of rap songs that have hooks in it. I'll be honest. So I like freestyles, um, or you know, like boom bap rap, like where it's just like so like Wu Tang, right? Wu Tang is one of my favorites. Like growing up, like when I found rap, Wu Tang hit me well, and they got hooks. Don't think I don't like hooks, but it's the slower like New York, you know, Northeast style of just put on a beat and we're gonna spit, right? And so that's the type of like the last song I did, you know, the beat that I got was like, so I go on YouTube and that's why I don't release the songs. It's because it's copyright claimed and I don't own the beats. But the last beat, you know, had I think it was was it Joey? What the fuck was his name? What is his name? Yeah, Joey Badass. Love this dude, by the way. Love Joey Badass. It was a beat sort of that sounded like what he would put out, right? And that's a style of music and rap that I like. And I know a lot of you are like, like I don't like mainstream rap. I could do a mainstream rap song. You know, I could get on the beat like Drake. I mean, I guess you could say Chat GTP is my ghostwriter, right? So me and Drake have something in common. We don't write our own songs, but that's about as far as we have in common. Um, but anyway, let's get to wrestling. Let's get to wrestling, right? Because what I was gonna say is Chat GTP wrote that script for me, right? And anything that I wanted to tweak a little bit, I did, and that's what this episode is as well. I tested it last week. This week we're gonna put it into practice again. And now that I've wasted 18 minutes of your time, a little bit of insight onto WeTooDeep, some housekeeping, some behind the curtain stuff, right? Let's actually get to the actual product that you came to listen to. See, this is why ChatGTP is great, right? Because I go down rabbit holes and then I look up at the timer and like, oh shit, we're 20 minutes into this. I haven't started yet. So let's start. So I say this that I'm a casual fan, right? Because I'm going to take some shots at casuals on this episode. Because I've noticed some things. So I have to start this off that I do consider myself casual. And I got to go back to that casual wrestling, what it means to be a casual fan, and remind you guys that when I say casual, remember, I view fandom as a spectrum. And so on one side, on the far extreme, on one side, you have your, what I would call the super marks, right? Right. And you have super marks of wrestling, of WWE only fans, AEW only, right? And then on the other side of the spectrum, on that far extreme, you have what I would call the super casual, right? Just WrestleMania only, maybe a SummerSlam, but we're not watching weekly, right? You know, the fans that, you know, Roman Reigns and The Rock brought back to wrestling maybe, but they don't really necessarily consider themselves a fan of wrestling. If it's on the TV, they'll watch, right? So when I say I'm casual, that's not what I'm determining. Like, I'm not determining how casual you are based on how much of the product you watch, because I don't think that that's fair. Because I think someone like me, who I watch Monday, I watch Tuesdays, I watch Fridays, I watch pay-per-views. Occasionally, I'll watch an AEW. Occasionally, I'll watch a TNA. I go on YouTube and I search independent matches of my favorite indie wrestlers. Right? But so casual is not defined by how much of the product you watch on a week-to-week basis, it's a mindset. Casual is actually a mindset. It's not based on action. It's based on how you view the product. It's viewing the product the way it was meant to be viewed, as entertainment, right? As entertainment. It's an entertainment form. It's an art. And understanding that I watch wrestling and I'm passionate about wrestling, because casual doesn't mean you can't be passionate. Excuse me, but it's understanding that the passion that you have for wrestling needs to be contained within the 2 or 3 hour show that you're watching. And once the show is over, you can have conversations, you can talk about it just like any other TV show, like or movie or entertainment form that has a fan base. You could talk about it, you could have opinions and all of that. But understand that at the end of the day, the results are entertainment, and they don't affect your day-to-day life. And so, and that to me, that's casual, right? So I may not mark, I may not just be the I only watch WrestleMania crowd, but and I'm definitely not the I mark out at every Canadian destroyer that gets no sold on AEW crowd, right? But I'm in the middle. I respect the craft, the grind, and most of all, the business, right? Like I said, I'm the bridge or the gateway of between the so-called supermarks or hardcores and the normies, right? I'm the middle because I love the story. You guys know the number one thing that I care about in wrestling is the story. What's the plot, right? We can't lose that, right? But I also respect the in-ring, right? And I use this as an example, right? If you go to an action movie, right, and all you get are action scenes. In this case, action scenes would be the in-ring wrestling. What you get is a bunch of action that make no sense. If there's no plot, if it's just 3 hours of straight action scenes, is that a good movie to you? No, it's not. No, at least not to me, because I have zero idea as to why this is happening. That's why with action movies, depending on how long the movie is, typically the first 25 to 30% of the movie is the plot, the story leading up to the main action scene, which can be 20, 30, 40 minutes. And then you get the resolution of the plot to wrap up the story at the very end, which is typically like the last 10% of the movie, right? So, right, but if you go to that same movie and there is no action and it's just plot points, well, then it's not a very good action movie either, right? So you need both. You need the action in-ring ability, but you also need the story to give a reason as to why the action is happening, right? And I like both of it, right? And I'm not going to sit here and try to pretend to know it all, right? But I'm also not going to sit here and allow these casuals and these type of casuals that I'm talking about. And the first thing I want to say is none of this is personal. None of this is personal, right? But if the shoe fits, you got to wear it. And I'm not going to let these casuals who watch on Mondays and Fridays only. First off, that doesn't make you less of a fan. I don't care that you only watch Mondays and Fridays. But I'm not going to sit here and let those type of fans tell me that I'm not a real casual or I'm part of some I'm not on I don't know. It's crazy what's going on, right? And we'll get to that in the next little paragraph here, because I don't want to spoil the lead to what I want to get to, right? I'm not going to let them sit here and be like, "Oh, you're not a true casual fan because you engage with the IWC on Twitter or you engage on Reddit," which I don't like Reddit. I think it's weird. Or you engage with the IWC on X and you're too deep into the IWC to be a true casual, right? No. I need to break down this again because I don't know if I've said this in a while, right? The IWC, we got to break down those words. Words mean things. They have definitions and they have purpose, right? So IWC, that's Internet Wrestling Community. So community is understandable, right? So internet. Well, what's the internet, right? Well, obviously, if you're watching this, you're on the internet. If you're engaging with a podcast, if you make a podcast, if you're on TikTok, if you're on X, no matter how you view the business, you're online, right? And you're discussing. The internet wrestling community is a community of wrestling, I would say wrestling fans, but people who watch wrestling and engage in wrestling content on the internet. So, newsflash, the casuals make up a subsection of the IWC. I describe it this way, right? The human body is one organism, right? But it's made up of several different parts, right? You got the heart, you got the brain, you got the liver, you got the arms, the feet, the head, the eyes, the nose, the ears, right? And it's several different things that have their own viewpoint on how to operate, have their own instructions given to them by the DNA that forms them, right? Well, in the same way, the IWC is made up of the entire internet and the fans within that watch wrestling. Whether you're casual, whether you're hardcore, whether you watch WrestleMania only, if you're watching wrestling and you're engaging in the content online, congratulations. Newsflash for you. You're part of the IWC. Grab a chair. Welcome. Right? And so the trend, the real issue that I'm seeing is there's a trend here that some of these casual wrestling creators and fans who typically just watch WWE. And again, none of that is a bad thing. I'm not sitting here and saying that in order to be a real wrestling fan, you have to watch everything that exists in wrestling, right? But I think you have to at least acknowledge that it exists, right? And there's some and again, I don't want to bury the lead here because we'll get to that point here in a minute. The real issue that I'm seeing in this new trend is that these casual fans, some of them make content, some don't. They are building a phony war, and I've participated in this, and I've been. It's sort of why I've done the rebrand, right? And when I say rebrand, like I took out the intro that's like, warning, this is for casual fans only, right? Because I was sort of drawn into the aura of these guys who do this and thinking, well, yeah, maybe they're right. Maybe there is a war between the IWC and the CWC. And I had to take a step back. And when I say CWC, casual wrestling community, I don't mean just the Discord, the one individual Discord. No, right? I don't mean just them. I mean the casual wrestling as a whole, right? Right? Again, none of this is personal, right? But if the shoe fits, you got to wear it. And so these people they're building some sort of phony war, right? It's the casuals versus the IWC, right? But it's not a real war. It doesn't exist. You know, I believed in this war, right? To the point where like, I'm going into it, right? We're here to protect the internet from the nerds, right? And then you get on the battlefield and you're the only one there because the IWC is laughing at you, thinking you're trying to save some small community from the IWC, right? When you're actually fighting yourself, right? It's marketing. It's not a real war. It's marketing. And you know what it is? It's the same marketing that someone like a Donald Trump, when he ran for president in 2015, he used, right? What was his marketing? Those guys are your enemies. I'm your savior from those said enemies. And he created an entire marketing campaign solely on you can't like those people, right? It's no different than what, and again, this is the extreme type of how you use this, but it is marketing, right? It's no different than, you know, I don't really want to use this excuse, but I do, because this is really extreme. I'm not comparing these content creators to this person, but it's the same thing that Hitler did to get Germany to go against the Jews. All the problems Germany was having, which was Germany's fault, by the way, and their leadership's fault. But Hitler came to power by saying, no, we have to pin the blame on someone that the common folk will understand. And that is those Jews, those are the enemy. They're the reason all this is happening, right? And so I'm your savior. We'll get rid of that, right? And again, that's an extreme point of view of this. And I feel like that's basically what this is. They're painting themselves as some sort of heroes, the defenders of the real fan base. And really, I just feel like it's a big gimmick. A lot of it doesn't feel real. It feels like, and a lot of it comes off as straight marketing. But let me be blunt. What I'm not saying is that the IWC is always correct. There are some crazy people in the IWC, 100% agree with that. Just like you got crazies in any community. And I understand WWE is the heart of the business, right? I'm not denying that. But without WWE, wrestling does not exist at the scale it does today. It is the heart of the business. And just like with the human body, if the heart dies, the rest of the body dies, right? A lot of people are like, oh, the most important organ is the brain. Not true. Not true at all, right? Because you could go brain dead, be hooked up to a machine, and still be alive. Your heart's still pumping, right? That's right. Your brain could stop working as long as you have heart movement, and with modern science, you could do. Now, you're not going to be able to do anything. You'll be in a coma, but you could still live. The body can still survive without brain activity, right? But if the heart stops, that's why end of life is determined by a lack of brain, or excuse me, by a lack of heart activity. Because after you die, like when your heart stops pumping, right, you're technically dead. You'll be pronounced dead. Your brain's actually still working for several minutes after your heart stops, because it's not everything has shut down yet, right? But once the heart stops, that's where life is considered over, because if the heart stops pumping, well, then blood can't get to any of the other parts of the body, and blood is what keeps you living, right? WWE is not the only thing in wrestling, though. It's a living organism. You do have your AEWs, your New Japans, your TNAs, the indie scene. It's all part of a living, breathing organism that we call professional wrestling. And it's okay to scream that I love professional wrestling. And when I say pro wrestling, I mean all of it. I do love the indie scene. I do love TNA. There are parts of AEW that I like, and the reason that I criticize AEW so hard is because I want it to thrive, and I don't think at its current state it's thriving. It's surviving with a section of the fan base, and it's not growing, right? Acting like WWE is the only real wrestling, in that everything else is for the nerds or the IWC virgins that live in mama's basement, right? That stereotype is so overplayed. It really is. That's just flat out disrespectful, not only to the humans behind that you're jabbing at, but it's disrespectful to the business, to the art form of pro wrestling. Because WWE is not it. It's not the only thing here. And to sit here and be like, well, I even heard someone say, and as far as these releases, that once you leave WWE, you no longer exist to me. That's disrespectful, dude. And you may not see it as disrespectful. That might be your reality, and that may be fine. But Dakota Kai is going to exist, and hopefully she comes back as Evie, y'all. Evie and AEW would be great. I'll pop for that. She's going to exist, even if you don't know about it. Will Ospreay exists. He wrestles, right? He's an actual thing, right? And you guys acknowledge it when he says something stupid like he did this week. But you won't acknowledge him anytime else. You say, oh, he doesn't exist to me. No, he does exist. You know about him. He's reached your radar. I know it because you talk about him. The casuals talk about Will Ospreay. They talk about AEW. It exists, right? TNA exists. Like, you may not watch it, but it exists. Like that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It's crazy. Acting like WWE is the only thing that exists is absolutely disrespectful to the business. That's the only way I could put it, right? Because here's the irony: the people who wave this type of flag the loudest, and this I thoroughly believe this. I don't even think they like pro wrestling. I don't. I think a lot of them, who, especially the content creators, I don't know about the people who call themselves fans. They're not wrestling fans. They're WWE fans. They're fans of the nostalgia. They're fans of the moments. And again, moments are great. Moments are wonderful. You want moments in wrestling, right? But these people, they're not fans of pro wrestling as an industry. They're fans of WWE, and that's fine. Again, that's not a negative thing, but let's call a spade a spade. You're not a wrestling fan, right? These type of people, they want to go back to when Austin and Rock made them feel something as a teenager, and they don't want to evolve with the business. Here's the fact of the matter, right? As much as I can get mad at Triple H's booking and say, he books for the IWC, he books for the indie crowd, he books the way Tony Khan books. The reason they're both booking the way they're booking is that is what a majority of wrestling fans want to watch. They want to watch a more in-ring product, which is fine. I think Triple H does it a little better because he does evolve some sort of type of story in it, right? If Tony Khan just gave competent storytelling to his programming, it would be decent. I'm gonna be honest with you, right? I've been watching AEW here over the last few weeks, mostly just Dynamite. Collision is awful. Collision is god awful, right? Collision is where they put the misfits on the island of misfit toys, and then they stick it on a Saturday. And unfortunately, this week they stuck it on a Thursday, where some people may actually tune in. But Dynamite's not as bad as everyone makes it out to be. It's not good. It's a boring show. This past Wednesday's episode of Dynamite was boring. And AEW fans are going to praise it, right? Right, but these casuals that think WWE's it, they're not wrestling fans. They're WWE fans. And again, that's fine, but let's call a spade a spade. True wrestling fans, though, grow with the business, evolve with the business, right? And they respect the business, right? But a lot of these people, they just want to rewind the tape back, and they want to bring back Goldberg for no reason whatsoever. We'll get to that, right? So, as I said, yeah, I'm a casual fan, but I'm not even a casual. I don't like labels. I don't. I think labeling people is a way that the system controls people. Labeling is a form of control. Oh, you're a casual. Oh, you're a hardcore. It's to label. It's to dehumanize the person behind the label. So now I can take away the fact that you're a human being, and because you're a human being made in the image and the likeness of God, and I'll say it that way, that you're made in the image of God and you're worthy of respect. And so we label you as, right? If I can label you in a way that takes away your dignity, I can make fun of you and not feel about it. It's dehumanizing. Labels are dehumanizing. And we get labels everywhere, right? Labels are dehumanizing. So, sure, if you want to label me a casual fan, that's fine. But here's what I'll label myself. I'm a real wrestling fan. I will not be ashamed any longer to shout from the rooftops, I love pro wrestling. Not just WWE, but the industry as a whole. Because there are very good parts that you would say don't exist, or that some people would say don't exist. There are parts of that on the indie scene where they're busting their ass off to get to their goal. And I think we should respect that grind rather than acting like it doesn't exist. I'm not trying to save the wrestling world from some sort of fake internet nerd war that is being pushed by these fake gatekeepers who are just trying to cash in on a war that they made up. Right? I respect the fans, I respect the craft, I respect the business. And while we're on this, being a casual fan does not mean you have to be clueless about the world of wrestling. Doesn't mean you can't have passion about the business known as pro wrestling. Right? It's like I saw this post, one of the most ignorant posts I've ever seen. And again, it's one of these type of people that they just post things to stir the pot up, right? And it is a post of basically it was a picture of Julia with her braids when she came out on Monday, and it was like, I'm surprised that the social justice warrior faction of the IWC hasn't called Julia a cultural appropriator for having braids, right? And again, social justice warrior is a label that essentially means nothing anymore. It's what, and I'm going to be straight up honest, coming from a more political conservative, it is a term that MAGA political, I wouldn't even call them conservative because I'm a true conservative, right? I don't think MAGA are actual conservatives. That's just my opinion. Anyway, I'm not trying to get political here. But social justice warrior is a term that Republicans throw on anyone that thinks further left on the political spectrum than them, right? I've been labeled by certain groups of the far right. I've been labeled as a social justice warrior. I'm not, right? But it's a term that means nothing anymore. It's a term that means nothing anymore. Just like how people could throw the term racist around all the time. Doesn't mean it's true. And to the point that the term racist has lost its meaning, right? And so this labeling of anyone that's further left politically than you as a social justice warrior is crazy. But what's also even crazier is the fact that a 30-second search on Google, all you had to search was Julia, spell it correctly, Guilia, Julia, wrestler, Japan. 3 words. Not hard to search. You could type it pretty quick. And the first 7 images, probably more, will be Julia in Japan with all her titles with her braids. She's been running that hairstyle for years. Right? And these people post in ignorance, and it makes them look what they are, and that's ignorant. Because this guy had to come back out and say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize she ran it in Japan. Bro, a 30-second search would have fixed that for you. Now you don't look retarded. Sorry. That's the word that I really feel about some of these people when they post shit. Is that, bro, you look retarded when you say this shit. Right? Right? Being a casual fan doesn't mean you have to be clueless. Doesn't mean you can't learn the history of the business that you claim to love and watch. Right? Doesn't mean you have to be an encyclopedia. But like, if you're going to watch modern wrestling, the only way you can enjoy it, right? So for example, right? If I were to watch, so every now and then, I don't know if it's on screen or if it's after we stop recording on Tuesdays, but DJ Wavy D was telling me about the show Daredevil. Now, I'm not a big superhero fan. Like, that genre of movie and TV show doesn't really capture my attention. And I think it's a little corny. I'm gonna be honest with you. I put it sort of in the same areas like anime. That there's a strong fan base that when I say that I don't like that genre, they get a little bit upset. But I mean, I'll be honest with you. The only thing on TV that I really like outside of pro wrestling are like documentaries, and like the crime shows, FBI. There's the show on CW called Wild Cards that I started watching, right? But like he was telling me about Daredevil, right? But let's say that I wanted to go in on Daredevil, right? And learn about the show and watch the show with him, right? And we could that way we could talk about it, right? I would have to go all the way back to season 1 and watch the show to get up to date, or have him explain to me what's happening, right? Because being a casual watcher, in order to understand the show, you have to know the background, right? But the same thing exists in wrestling. This doesn't mean you have to go back to the 20s and learn the history of wrestling, but at least understand the basics of the business and the characters that are on your television. And again, that doesn't mean you have to go out and buy a handbook and no, there's 30 seconds. Instead of asking the question, well, who is this person? Instead of asking that in a Google form, or excuse me, in a disc chat group or a Discord or on Twitter or X, go to Google and ask the same question. Who is this person? Just search their name. It'll pop up. Their Wikipedia page will give a background of who they are, where they're from, what their history is, right? That's all you need to know. Like, it's a 30-second search and maybe a 2-minute read on Wikipedia. That's all the research you need to do. I'm not asking you to go, if I were to go underneath that TV, there is where I keep all my books. There's little shelves under there, right? I have several wrestling books. I got one on the entire history of Monday Night Nitro that I bought, planned to read, realized it was like 1,000 pages, and said, yeah, fuck this. I also have one on the history of the NWA, right? Right? And haven't read that one yet either. Eventually, maybe I will. Right? I'm not asking you to go buy these books and learn about everything and how wrestling got to where. I'm just asking you to like not make yourself look like you don't have to be clueless. I feel like a lot of casual fans try to keep their casual card by not knowing about the business. But if you love the business, like some of them say they do, why wouldn't you want to know about it? Right? And being a casual also doesn't mean that you have to be a mouthpiece for lazy hot takes. Right? And this is where we're going to transition to the next topic, because one of those takes here recently have been, Jey Uso is so over with the crowd, man. We got to keep the title on him. He's the best for business. Right? No. Take that argument, and I want you to throw it in the same recycling bin that Becky Lynch said she's gonna throw Lyra Valkyria tomorrow at Backlash. I want you to take that and put it in the same recycling bin where every other lazy creative decision WWE has ever made because they listened to the fans and let them do the booking. Right? I complain all the time about the IWC fan base hijacking shows in the crowd, right? But I'm also starting to get a little bit tired of casuals hijacking what could be actual long-term storytelling because they have a TikTok level attention span where their depth of understanding, right? I used to be like, I've had several stages with Gunther, right? Gunther to me used to be in my top 3 pro wrestlers in the world. And then I was told by several casual fans and the internet that Gunther's not as good. He's boring on the mic, this, that, and the third. He has no character, blah, 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 blah. And so I started to feed into that, and I started to believe it, and I was a little bit brainwashed into doing that, right? I have sheep tendencies too at times. But a lot of times I realize that when I'm being like led astray because the sheep are trying to lead other sheep astray, right? I take a step back and say, no, I got to think for myself here. I love Gunther, right? I don't think Gunther's been as bad as some of us have made him out to be over the last year and a half. The problem is that a lot of so-called casuals don't have the depth, one, again, of understanding of who Gunther is in the wrestling world, and why his gimmick doesn't connect, but they don't have the depth and the attention span for that level of booking. They want the TikTok type flash in their face stuff, right? They have TikTok level attention spans, and they have a mentality that's like, well, we got to cheer for the guy with the catchphrase, right? We got to cheer for Seth Rollins because the crowd sings his song for 17 minutes. We got to cheer for Jey Uso because he gets 10-minute entrances where he yeets all day long and you can dance like a banshee, right? And right? Yes, the crowd pops for Jey Uso. That's wonderful. The kids love him. Cool. That's fantastic. I'm be honest with you though. I'm tired of that. I'm tired of it because the people who say, well, they're booking for the. I used to say they're booking for the kids, and they are. But I've always said that with the caveat of they're booking for the kids to get the parents in the arena. And in order to keep the parents, right, here should be the goal. Get your kids in the arena, but also tell stories that are, attractive enough to the adults to keep them wanting to come back. Right? I'm so tired of this. Well, Jey Uso's for the kids, and you don't have, and then they'll be like, you don't have kids, so you wouldn't understand. I don't need to have experience having kids to understand psychology, right? I was having a debate with this, and basically what was told to me is your logic is something that someone who doesn't have kids would say. You don't understand what you're talking about because you don't have that experience. If this was in a different world, what that is known is that is a philosophical understanding known as Gnosticism, right? That because you don't have experience, so Gnosticism just means knowledge or experience, right? So because you have a different level of, you have a certain level of experience, that you have more knowledge on a topic, and that experience doesn't mean knowledge. Let me just put that out there, right? Because they've done tests, and they've done actual studies on these things, right? And so my argument with this is that, well, kids pop. So my argument was that basically got that response was kids between the ages of 5 and like 13, before puberty, they pop for everything, and there's a reason for that. There's an actual psychological, scientific understanding for why kids pop for everything. It's because they don't have those experiences. When they're introduced to new flashy things, their brains are creating neurological pathways. The synapses in the brain are firing off dopamine, and it's creating an experience they've never had before. And those become very good experiences, right? There's a reason why adults, the longer they go through life, certain things don't excite them as much as they used to. It's because you've already had that synapse full and stuff like that, right? You see what I'm saying? So kids pop for everything, especially when it's flashy and loud and it's got lights and you can dance to it, because that's a new experience for them. It's something they can understand. And I get that there's a science behind it, but that doesn't mean that's how you have to book for everyone else. Because guys, let's be honest. I will be willing to bet 75% of the WWE fan base, not just wrestling, but 75% of the WWE fan base falls somewhere between the lines of 25 and 50. I don't know if we can have that information given to us, but I'm willing to bet. This is why we're seeing the advertising that we're seeing. That's why WWE has Jack Daniels advertised on NXT. That's why Real American Beer is in there, right? Sure, they got the video games for the kids, but let's just be honest with you, right? 7-year-old kids aren't the only people fucking buying Fortnite. are playing Fortnite. You got 28, 29, 30, 45-year-old people who play Fortnite. Fortnite's not just for kids. Doom, the new video game or whatever it is, that's not just for kids. Right? They're marketing to, you could tell by the sponsorships that they have. They're marketing to their core audience, which I'm willing to believe is somewhere between the 25 to 50-year-old market. Why don't you tell stories for that market? Right? I'm so tired of the children or who they're booking for excuse. Because newsflash, right? Yeet. Saying yeet doesn't make you championship material because it's not storytelling. Jey Uso has no story. Remember what I said once he won the Royal Rumble, and I gave you this warning. What did I say? My main question is what? What's next? Logan Paul is next. Not a bad feud. Don't hate it. Don't take it that way. But there's no story. Because Jey Uso is branding. It's clear as day he's branding. He's only on TV to sell you t-shirts. He's branding. And news flash, I'm going to give you another one. Breaking news. Branding doesn't carry main events. This is why Jey Uso, even though his shirt says the main event, that's why Jey Uso wasn't the main event at WrestleMania. Because branding doesn't carry main events. It's not Gunther's fault. Gunther did his job very fucking well. He's the only reason I was entertaining that match as being any source of competent entertainment. Branding doesn't carry a main event. And I'm reminded of a quote from C.S. Lewis, the author of the Narnia series, who he said something along the lines of, a children's story that can only be enjoyed by children is not a good children's story. WWE, like any good form of storytelling, has to work beyond just telling stories for kids. You can't just book for the kids whose parents buy the merch, right? You have to give adults something layered, meaningful, and something that has a payoff. Right? Pixar knows this. Disney knows this. Nickelodeon knows this. Why does WWE not know this? Or why do WWE fans not know this, right? Right? The reason SpongeBob is a hit still today is because as an adult, you can go back and rewatch it, and you'll get new experiences from the jokes that they put in there that are solely for the adults watching, right? You have to tell a story that not only is enjoyable by children, but enjoyable by the adults who are also watching the show. And when your core audience is not the kids, I'm not saying take Jey Uso away. All I'm saying is Jey Uso should not be the main event. He should not be the title holder. When you have so much more capable people, I'm 100% of the mindset Jey Uso should have lost on Monday. First off, it would have been a random surprise for that title. Second, the longer story there, the only story within that feud, has nothing to do with Jey Uso. It has everything to do with Sami Zayn, who I would say is a bigger babyface, by the way, than Jey Uso. So many people are like, oh, Jey Uso's the main guy they show us. No. Jey Uso's not the biggest babyface in the business. He's not even the biggest in the company. Sami Zayn is. Sami Zayn is the biggest babyface in WWE right now, which is crazy to say. You can love him or hate him. You don't have to like the gimmick to acknowledge that. He's the biggest babyface in the company. He gets the biggest outside of Cody, but again, Cody gets the reaction because it's the song, right? But Sami Zayn also, and especially in Canada, they sing along to his song all the time, right? Sami Zayn is a big babyface in the business. I think the biggest in the company. But this isn't a kid problem. Like, it's not like Jey Uso's not like the problem because of the kid. No. There are adult fans who cape around for Jey Uso like he's the second coming of Bret Hart. Like he's some like wrestling royalty. And that's crazy. And I'll tell you why this happens, though. I tell you why this happens. There's a little industry secret in the entertainment business, right? I used to do a lot of research into like the music industry because that was an industry as a kid that I wanted to get into. I wanted to be a musician, and especially along like the cultism, the occultism, the flat out Satanism in the music industry that you're seeing, right? The example being 99 Problems being song 9 on Jay-Z's song. So when you flip the album upside down, it's 666. Like that's not an accident. That was 100% designed. Especially when a song on that same album on with the next one, the music video has nothing to do with bouncing from girl to girl. It's all occult symbolism, right? Travis Scott's concert. You remember what's it called, Rocket World or whatever? When everyone started passing out and shit, and everyone was like, "Oh, it's because they didn't have water." That might be part of it, but dude was doing, you had strobe lights, you had strobe effects. Modern music, mainstream music concerts are essentially just black mass ceremonies, religious ceremonies to bless albums. 100% believe all this. I do. You don't have to. You might call me crazy, but there's an industry secret that a lot of people who are trying to get into that business find out pretty quickly because these executives have this feeling. And that little secret is this. The industry execs, the entertainment industry executives hold this mindset. The mass populace are sheep who will go wherever you tell them to go. They will buy whatever you market to them. They will get whatever you want. We just did we had live guinea pig study on this for the last, from 2020 to 2022 on this very thing. If we tell them enough and we warn them and scare them enough, everyone will get vaccinated. Everyone will wear their mask. The mass populace are sheep. They don't think for themselves. They're spoon-fed catchphrases. They're told who to cheer for. They're told what to buy. And like robots, they comply. They pop because they're told to pop. They chant because some guy on the screen told them to chant. It's social programming with pyro. And guess what? I don't fall for it. I don't fall for it. I'm not a sheep. I stand against the grain. I call a spade a spade. I call it like it is. Jey Uso is not world championship material. He's not even the best in his own locker room. He's charisma without the depth. He's catchphrases without character development. Meanwhile, you have Sami Zayn and Seth Rollins, who are the defining examples of character development and depth. Right? Instead, people don't want to watch that. And people may want to watch that, but they're not going to, right? Instead of giving Seth Rollins the strap, putting Jey Uso to the side to be the branding in different segments, because you need the branding on the show. I'm not saying take him off the show. I'm just saying take the belt off of him. Instead of putting the belt on Rollins and allowing Rollins and Zayn, the best things on the Raw roster right now, to tell the story that they're telling, you're putting Jey Uso, the guy who peaked in character development when he broke up with the Bloodline. Ever since that moment, nothing's changed about Jey Uso. It's time for the WWE universe to wake up. Jey Uso is just a placeholder, and the longer the title is on Jey Uso, the colder the rest of the storylines that are real storylines with real depth and with real character development get. This whole Jey Uso reign is a dead end. There's no upward arc. The entire story ended when he won the title, because the entire story was him winning the title. It's no different than Cody Rhodes finishing his story, right? And both of them had the same result. They had the fallout of them winning at Mania took a very long time to get there, right? Jey Uso has no real conflict right now. He's just vibes and yeet. We'll yeet for 10 minutes. The music will stop. We'll put it back on. We'll yeet for another minute and a half. Pat McAfee screaming on commentary. Meanwhile, you got a guy like Sami Zayn who gone from one of the worst gimmicks I've ever seen in that conspiracy gimmick. And I know a lot of people liked heel Sammy, and heel Sammy's great, but that individual gimmick was awful, in my opinion, right? To main eventing and probably being the most important character at one point in the bloodline, to then leaving the bloodline in that emotional way, becoming tag champions with Kevin Owens, leaving Kevin Owens, having that feud, then becoming Intercontinental Champion, beating Gunther, and still has found a way to make himself interesting now, chasing the only thing he hasn't got on WWE, the World Championship, a World Championship. Sami Zayn's character depth, his development, his story arc is much more compelling than Jey Uso. That's the long-term story. It's going to be the long-term story, and we should make that the focal point of Monday Night Raw, with Seth Rollins holding the championship. Hopefully that happens sooner rather than later. Jey Uso cannot hold the title to SummerSlam. He can't. I think people will lose interest in him if he holds it that long. For the sake of Jey Uso, I think you got to strip him of the title and just have him be the circus monkey. And I use that word without disrespect, but being the circus monkey, sort of like LA Knight, right? LA Knight winning a title will probably be really bad for him because he's the brand, right? He's the brand guy. He does the Slim Jim stuff. Like, have him go and be that promo guy without being the champion, right? But now we're going to switch pages for a minute, right? We're going to go back to, we're starting to mix the two topics we already covered because I think there's a real plague in wrestling. But it's really more so in every aspect of entertainment today. These grifters and engagement farmers that I sort of mentioned already, right? That put toxicity into the experience of watching wrestling, right? They hijack conversations to push the dumbest take possible. Not because they actually believe the take, but because they know it will stir up the pot, rack up the clicks, get their name trending for 5 minutes. They'll say something like, Jey Uso's the greatest world champion of all time. They'll say it with a straight face. Not because they believe it, but because they want to rile up people like me who will respond to them because I actually have a brain and I don't operate on what's going to pop the algorithm, right? And then when they get called out for their stupidity, they throw out this victim card. Oh, why are you attacking me? I'm just giving my opinion. Stop trying to cancel me, bro. No. You're playing the algorithm. You're not being canceled. You're being held accountable. You can't go into a crowded theater or a crowded public space and yell the word fire. That's not freedom of speech. Because that speech endangers the environment. If I ran into a theater, right? Thunderbolts just came out. I know WeTooDeep gave a dazzling review of it on Tuesday. If I were to go into the theater full of people on opening night, let's say when, I don't know what movie, I don't really pay attention to movies. I don't pay attention to Hollywood, to be honest with you. Let's say opening, that movie Sinners just came out. That's the first thing that came to mind with Michael B. Jordan and Haley Steinfeld. That movie just came out. Let's say on opening night, I walked into a theater packed full of people who was fully intention on watching that movie, right? And I ran into the theater, didn't pay for it. I was in the theater. I opened the door. I ran up the stairs and screamed, "Guys, there's a fire!" and then ran back out. That's not free speech. That's not a prank. That's public endangerment. And that's exactly what the grifters are essentially doing online. They run into perfectly reasonable conversations, scream something incendiary just for the attention, and then when someone turns the lights on, calls them out, they play the victim. I'm just giving my opinion. I have freedom of speech. First rule, freedom of speech protects you from the government, not from me. Second, freedom of speech doesn't cover anything that endangers the public space, right? It's childish, it's pathetic, and it's ruining the atmosphere, right? Wrestling is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be storytelling, passion, athleticism, drama rolled into one art form. But you've got these creators who I don't even think like pro wrestling. They don't understand it. They're trying to tear it down because they're not smart enough or patient enough to engage with it on its own terms. They suck the joy out of it for those of us who love pro wrestling. These people who go on and they make just like the example I gave about Julia, right? They go on there 100% expecting to see or 100% fully intended on just stirring the pot up, right? And then someone calls them out, then they'll be like, oh, all these people say I'm grifting, and I'm not grifting, I'm just giving my opinion, man. I don't make nothing from this platform. Nah, bruh. You're sucking the joy out of all of us who, right? We're not trying to cancel you. Have your opinions, but stop with the hot takes, right? See, there's a difference. Let me back up a little bit. There's a lot of people be like, bro, all you do is be negative, right? I've been told in a couple of the discords that I'm in, especially after WrestleMania, when I blasted WWE, and a lot, right? That I'm too negative, that I'm ruining the environment. And maybe that's true. Maybe I'm a little negative to WWE sometimes. But I think I was telling the truth, right? See, there's a difference between what I do, which is actual constructive criticism, and what these grifters do, which is parasitic performative outrage. They don't want wrestling to get better. See, that's the difference. I want wrestling to get better. I criticize AEW and WWE's booking because I want it to be better. They don't want wrestling to get better. They want the spotlight. They want to be right more than they want to enjoy the product. And until the fans start waking up to that, we'll keep getting drowned in these fake hot takes and catchphrases while the real voices get buried beyond the noise. Right? And you know what really, really pisses me off? Is the fact that there are real podcasts out there, like me, the Slapping Me Wrestling podcast, right? That put in real work week in and week out. 2 episodes, like I do 2 episodes a week. I plan it. Do I edit it? No. There's a reason I don't edit it, though, right? I want to remain authentic. We'll get to that in a minute, right? But planning 2 episodes a week, right? And trying to build this while working an actual job. Like, this isn't how I get my money, right? Right? Put in some real work, right? That bring actual thought and perspective, that talk about what they actually feel and think, not what's trending, not what'll go viral, not what will pop the algorithm, not what'll clickbait a reply for some blue check mark so that they get some payment from X. Because Elon Musk, if I want to blame someone, it's Elon Musk, first of all, because he's incentivizing grifting by paying people on Twitter. If you got a blue check mark and you have a certain amount of followers, I don't remember what it is. You can get paid, and that's why if you go into political Twitter's the worst, dude. All it is like open-ended questions, like, what do you think about Donald Trump's first 100 days, right? And it'll pop up in the algorithm, and then they'll get 1,500 responses, and they get paid per response. And if you sleep with Elon, he'll pay you more. That's a political joke if you don't understand that I'm sorry, but right? Not because of all of those things, but because excuse me. Right. So they see these podcasts, me, right? And there's several others out there, right? Because it's not the hot take of the day or some shallow performative outrage, like we go under the radar, right? Because I bring you actual critical thought. I bring you what we're at an hour and 15 right now, right? Of actual like thought provoking conversation. That's not the typical format of review show here. It's not right. Right. I don't do clickbait. I do real content, real substance. It's my show, right? My show, the Slap and Me Wrestling Podcast, especially on Friday's episodes, right? You have to swim in the deep end to get it. You might not always agree with me. That's fine. I don't ask for that. But I am going to challenge the surface level fandom and push past all the noise. And I think that's what good wrestling commentary, not just in wrestling, but in any perspective of life, any field of life, that's what good commentary should do. You know what? That type of integrity that doesn't get the algorithm's love. And honestly, I've kind of made peace with that. With that being said, though, help the algorithm show me some love by leaving a comment. I've said some things here. I told you we were going to pinch a nerve. Leave a comment what you think so far. Let's continue on, right? But right? Some of these so-called creators spend more time editing the perfect 30-second TikTok with the dramatic zoom, the beat in the background. They spend more time doing that than offering an actual point to talk about. And the sheep eat it up. Now, this just isn't just casuals. This is also hardcore wrestling creators as well. Right? The sheep, they eat it up. They love a good circus. And right now, wrestling content creation is flooded with clowns. It's a circus out here, man. No one, right? But I'm be honest with you. It's not just wrestling. It's politics. It's sports commentary. It's everywhere, right? Right. So don't tell me Jey Uso should be world champion because the crowd likes him. Don't tell me that I'm hating because I think deeper than a soundbite. I'm not here to go viral. I'm here to tell the truth. I'm here to get you to think. And if that means I'm the lone voice in the wilderness, so be it. Because I'd rather be real than be a puppet in the clown show. But I'm done talking about Jey Uso. You could sum up that part of the show as, in the title, is F them kids. Well, that's the F them kids part of the show. We're an hour into it. We still got another half to go. But let's talk about the Ring General. This man had the greatest Intercontinental Championship reign of all time. 666 days of dominance. Don't put that number behind you. I told you there's an industry secret, and they love Satanism. I'm not going to put that past them, but I'm not going to put that on Gunther either. Right? 666 days of dominance, of prestige, of actual pro wrestling excellence. And then he goes on to have a somewhat dominant World Heavyweight Championship run. And what does WWE do to reward that? What's his big WrestleMania moment? For the last 2 years at WrestleMania, Gunther has lost his championships. Last year was acceptable because it was Sami Zayn. It was a decent story, and we knew it was going to put Gunther in the world title picture. This year, it's Jey Uso, that damn cat phrase, and really, that's stupid. I'm gonna stand here and believe Gunther should have never lost the title. Yeet. Really? That is what ends one of the most dominant reigns in modern history. Not a classic, not a war, not a passing of a torch, a meme. So what comes after? Is Gunther going to be rewarded for putting over Jey Uso? Is he going to get a spotlight? I mean, it's a spotlight. But it's in the dumbest match I have ever seen coming up this Saturday at Backlash against a commentator, not a top-tier superstar, not a rival worthy of not a rival worthy of the Ring General's resume. No. Pat fucking McAfee, who's trying to glaze off Michael Cole and defend his honor because Michael Cole's shown up to work 28 years in a row and only missed 3 days. That's the gist of this, right? And this crying and complaining that he's earned the right to have an opinion and he shouldn't get attacked. Guys, JR got set on fire, big dog. The fuck are we complaining about? Pat McAfee, a guy who bounces around like a hyperactive child and gets by solely on charisma and a really dwindling football fame. That is the guy they choose to put in the ring with the greatest in-ring pro wrestler on the planet, Will Ospreay. I said it. Go fuck yourself. They put Pat McAfee in the ring with Gunther. Gunther doesn't have bad matches, so I'm not worried about the match. But you put Pat McAfee in the ring, a commentator. This better be a bloodbath. And if it's not, I'm warning you now. If this is not a bloodbath, I'm going off on WWE. If Pat McAfee puts up more offense, look, I get it. Pat McAfee's going to get a hit or two on Gunther, and it should be, right? The match should start with Pat McAfee taking a minute or two of control of the match to try to get one in for Michael Cole's honor, right? It should start, like, Pat McAfee should start fast and surprise Gunther. But then Gunther, after taking his licks, should spend 10 minutes beating the fuck out of him, right? But you put McAfee in the ring, and why are they doing this? What's the apparent end game? Goldberg? That's right. Oldberg. The man who hasn't wrestled a full match longer than 5 minutes since dial-up internet existed. You think Goldberg's going to come back to lose? Let's be real. His ego won't allow it. WWE is setting Gunther up to be a sacrificial lamb in some so-called retirement match that Triple H is giving to Goldberg so that he will shut up. A match that no one asked for. They're about to take the guy that carried the mid-card on his back for 666 days and then put the main event scene on his back since SummerSlam. And they're going to feed him to Goldberg, a part-timer who could barely take a bump. Gunther has done everything asked of him. Vince told him to go back to the Performance Center. You got to lose weight. You know what he did? He got in the best shape of his life. WWE needed a workhorse champion. Guess what Gunther did? He delivered classic after classic, or as Sheamus would say, banger after banger after banger. Every PLE and even on TV. He's a ring general in every sense of the word. He's a top 5 wrestler. I don't care what your list is. I know I may have overreacted by calling him number 1. I'd have to think a little bit deeper on that. But I do think he's a top 5 wrestler on the planet, no question. But guess what? They're going to put him against McAfee. and then they're going to put him against Goldberg. 2 jokes of a match. And Gunther is not a joke. He should be a stepping stone. He's a generational talent, and he should be treated like one. Put some damn respect on the ring general's name. If WWE has any sense left, they will fix this before they destroy everything they've built with Gunther. Because right now, not only is it disrespectful, I'm gonna be blunt with y'all. This is embarrassing. This is crazy. This is stupid. So we're gonna transition now. We're gonna predict who I think will win the Money in the Bank on the men's and the women's side. So let's get into it. Who's walking out with the briefcases at Money in the Bank? Well, on the men's side, I'm going to have to admit, Junkyard James was right in his predictions. Looking at the rumors, looking at the field of players, like at first I was like, okay, Breakker lost his title at Mania, but then he enters his faction with Rollins. And I'm like, well, I don't think he's going. I think he'll be in the Money in the Bank. I don't think he's going to win it, though. Because I think by Money in the Bank, Rollins will be champion. That's my prediction. By Money in the Bank in a month, I do believe Rollins will be champion, or Rollins will win the championship at Money in the Bank. Depends on. I do think there's going to be a Night of Champions in Saudi. I think that's what it's going to be called. So I would like to see Seth win it there. Anyway, but I do believe Junkyard James was right. It is going to be Roman Reigns. It makes all the sense in the world, right? Roman's story practically writes itself. He comes back. He wins Money in the Bank. He cashes in on John Cena at SummerSlam, spoiling The Rock's so-called master plan, which then lights the feud to finally get Rock versus Roman at WrestleMania 42. And look, I know I said I didn't care about this match. I know I said I didn't care. I'm going to be honest with you, though. I like this idea. I think this makes the most sense, right? But let's just say it's not Rock versus Roman. We already have another ready-made story in the chamber. It's Drew McIntyre, who should be fighting in world title pictures, who's a big heel. They teased it earlier this year in late 2024. But here's the kicker, right? Here's why I think it is going to be Roman. I think his career is coming to an end. The only accolade in WWE that Roman hasn't won yet is Money in the Bank. WWE loves completing checklists. And I think this year they finally give him the missing piece, because I do think WrestleMania 42 will be his last WrestleMania. Right? Because here's what I think is going to happen. I think we're going to get Rock versus Roman. I think Roman's going to win. And I think we're going to get some form of either he vacates the title or he takes the title with him. I don't know. I haven't booked it past WrestleMania 42 yet, but I think this will be his. Well, I'll say it this way. I think it'll be his last WrestleMania. I think he'll continue to wrestle through the rest of 2026, but I don't think when come 2027 WrestleMania 43, I don't think we'll see Roman Reigns. I think he's done. I think that this sets up a possibility of a Jacob Fatu or something like that to beat Roman Reigns of Drew McIntyre at a SummerSlam in 2026. Let's go to the women's side. This is a little bit more. No, I'm kidding. This isn't tricky at all. This is actually, I think, really easy, right? I'm going with Roxanne Perez because WWE has done a very good job of booking her. Has it been perfect? No. But they've done a really solid job of building her credibility on the main roster. She had a record-setting run in the Royal Rumble, held her own in the Elimination Chamber, We missed her on the main roster leading into WrestleMania after that, right? But she's gone toe-to-toe with Io Sky, Rhea Ripley, some of the best on the main roster right now, right? She stepped up to Tiffany Stratton. Back in a backstage segment, you're starting to see that the company trusts Roxanne, and they're planting seeds. I think this pick is the best also because of that unpredictability. She's gone up in a match against Io, so she has a reason to want to get Io's belt. But like I just said, she stepped up to Tiffany Stratton. So she stepped up to both champions. So there's a little bit of an unpredictability on where Roxanne would cash in. But there's also that unpredictability because she loves that NXT Women's Championship. And if she loses it, she doesn't get the opportunity to get it back. She had her rematch and she lost, and there's no way for her to get that back. And then she goes and wins the Money in the Bank with a free contract to give her a match whenever she wants, whenever, however she wants it. Even if it's after the champion already had a match, she could then cash in on an NXT and get her beloved NXT title back. I love this unpredictability that Roxanne Perez brings to Money in the Bank. It's a suspenseful situation because let's be honest, heel Money in the Bank winners are always the better winners, right? It always feels more dangerous when there is no set path either, right? So let's give Roxanne this briefcase, right? Let's let her be this sneaky, calculating heel on the main roster who's, she's not in a friend group. Like Tiffany Stratton was pretty easy on what was going to happen, right? But it's sneaky, right? Who do I defend? Who do I challenge, right? All right, so let's go into, speaking of unpredictability, there's an unpredictable mystery going on right now. And that is, who is going to be the third man to join Seth Rollins? I've seen people throw names around like Austin Theory, Ethan Page, and I've heard them. And honestly, at this point, I don't have a genuine opinion on who I think it could be. I have who I want it to be, right? But here's what I want, right? I'll tell you what I do want. I want WWE to stop booking based on nostalgia and start being bold. I've seen so many people, guess what? Myself included, I was one of the first to do this, right? That compared this to Evolution, thinking that Seth is building his version of Triple H's stable. And guys, it's tempting. I see it. I understand it's tempting, right? This is why, like, when I see a person like Miles Bourne in NXT doing everything he can to mimic Randy Orton, it's very tempting to be like, well, if they're building an Evolution, put him in the group. He's about to get dumped from his group, it looks like. Put him in this group. Right? It's tempting. WWE nostalgia books themselves half the time. Right? But this is the perfect opportunity to do something fresh. Don't copy the Dangerous Alliance. Don't copy Evolution. Do something new. See, this is the problem, not just in WWE, but in all of entertainment and all of Hollywood. They love to rehash old ideas with new characters. And people aren't bringing anything new to the table. Right? I don't care, honestly, if it's a name we've never seen coming. I don't care if it's still someone being molded into a star. See, like I always say, I'm consistent with this. What I care about is, does the story make sense? The narrative so far has been strong. It's layered. It's intriguing. I think I need a little bit of a reasoning to why Braun Breaker is in the group. I think we need to tell that. Right? Don't blow this, though, by turning this into a tribute act to stables of the past. Right? Wavy D, I respect you, right? But you said something I remember in one of the Discords that you think they're going to go the old Evolution route where Batista won. I'm assuming what you mean by that is how Batista won Royal Rumble and then chose Triple H. Great turn, but it's already been done before. And let's do something fresh. Let's do something new. Let's not make this a tribute act. Let's actually have it, pun intended, evolve into something that's distinctly new. So whether it's Theory, whether it's Ethan Page, whether it's Miles Bourne, or some sort of total curveball that none of us are thinking of, just make it click. Make the story good. Right? Make it good. I don't care who it is in the role, as long as the role and the story makes sense. So I'm gonna wrap this podcast up. I know I've gone a minute here, right? We're gonna wrap this thing up sort of where we started. I mentioned toxicity earlier. This is gonna be our react to it segment. No deep 5 this week. I'm gonna be honest with you, deep 5 is gonna be like a special segment when there's actually different women on the screen. But we're gonna do our wrap me up segment here, or our react to that segment here. Wrap me up's crazy. Let me wrap this up by bringing up a video that I watched that Wavy D shared in the Casual Wrestling Discord from We See Blonde. No hate to her at all. Actually, really enjoy her stuff. I love Wheezy. When I first got into like the wrestling side of social media on TikTok, Wrestle Talk, she was one of the ones. Her and Santi were two of the people that I really, really enjoyed watching, far above the rest of them. She posted a 5-minute thought-provoking video asking whether content creation has ruined the experience of watching wrestling. And honestly, if I have to be honest, I've sort of already talked about this a little bit. I think she's on to something. There is a very toxic subsection of the IWC. And again, when I say IWC, I include casuals and hardcores. Just remember that. That's why I had to preface that at the beginning of the show, right? And this subsection is one that I've been calling out constantly, consistently, all the time. These are people who treat wrestling purely as a content creating, brand building hustle. They chase dollars and clout, caring little, if at all, about the wrestling industry. They're not in it because they love wrestling. They're not in it to have thoughtful conversation. They're in it because they see an opportunity to exploit a passionate fan base for profit. They post just enough to stir the pot and then back out once the flames are burning. Like I said earlier, that's called grifting, not fan base, not fandom, excuse me. Right? And so that's more of the casual side, right, of the IWC. Let's talk about the other side, because there's two subsections here that are really toxic. Those people, the grifters, and then the super marks. The ones who won't let anyone else have a different opinion without launching into personal ad hominem attacks or gatekeeping. It's one thing to be passionate. I want people to be passionate about what they like. But it's also another thing to be so wrapped up in your own takes that you can't even have a respectful disagreement. That kind of mindset poisons the well for everyone, right? But we can't forget the Glazers, and then that's on, right? Those who blindly defend everything their favorite company does, whether it's the AEW, Tony Khan, Glazers, or the people who are WWE fans who will never, ever hold Triple H accountable for poor booking, never hold Dwayne accountable for poor booking and never showing up to work, always making excuses for Dwayne, always making excuses for Triple H. I've seen a lot of WWE glazing at the beginning of 2025, more so than usual, right? That kind of tribalism. Now, I think tribalism is good, but I think tribalism is only good as far as it doesn't turn into glazing, right? Glazing type of tribalism helps nobody. What it does is create echo chambers. Wrestling should never be about, choosing a side and then sticking to it in some fake war. It's about appreciating what works for both companies or all companies, right? AEW, TNA, New Japan, WWE. It's about praising what works, calling out what doesn't, and that means for all companies, and celebrating the fact that we have options. What I think Wheezy was really calling out, from my perspective, are the rage baiters and hot take artists who figured out how to manipulate algorithms to keep their names trending. They don't believe half the things they say. They aren't offering sincere opinions. They're just throwing gasoline on a fire for attention, and really it's a fire they start. And when that kind of performative outrage floods the timeline, it does ruin the experience, because it becomes impossible to separate what's genuine critique from guys like me and JD from NY and Salamonster from what's just a manufactured drama hot take. It pollutes the conversation. Let me make this clear. Not against people criticizing wrestling at all. Far from it. I do it on this podcast all the time. I want people to have opinions. I want passionate discourse. But I want it to be real, not shallow. And what's happening with some of these influencers, really, it's not content, it's noise. The saddest part is that in today's influencer culture, the loudest voice gets the biggest following. Not the most thoughtful, not the most honest, just the loudest. And then you end up with herd mentality, where the sheep, for the lack of better terms, follow whoever yells the most, not who actually brings something of value to the conversation. Again, this isn't about canceling anyone, not calling for censorship. But if your entire online persona is built on saying things you don't even believe just so you can stir up chaos and get the clicks, you're not contributing to wrestling culture. You are leeching off of it. And you're making it harder for the real fans, the real content creators, the podcasters, the community members to actually enjoy the product and have meaningful conversations about it. So the same way that I called out the fake outrage in over the WWE releases last week, I'm calling this out too, because it's the same energy. It's performative, shallow, negative, and completely unnecessary. So if you're tired of having that kind of noise and you're looking for a space where you can hear real people talk from people who are genuinely caring about the wrestling business, well, that's what this podcast is for. I'm not perfect. I don't have all the answers. What I do have is a commitment to authenticity. That's why I don't edit the show. That's why when I mistake something, I correct it, and I may look like a babbling idiot at times. But I care about authenticity, right? I have a commitment to authenticity. I have a respect for the business and the grind that these wrestlers have taken in their career to get to where they're at. And I just love this shit, man. I don't do this for money. I do this. I've always said this podcast was never to build a crowd. It was always just to give me a place to express my voice. I do this for the love, but I also respect the love of the game everyone else. Like, I posted this on X the other day, quick story. Ever since I've done the interview with Vicious Vicky, and I followed her on X and on Facebook and on her socials, I haven't seen anyone work as hard as she has. She's in the gym constantly. She's getting better. You know, she expressed on this show, like, she wants to get there, and she's willing to put in the work to get there. Right? That's the love for the game, and I respect that grind. You gotta stop rewarding the grifters, and let's actually start uplifting the voices that actually have something of substance to say. And with that, thank you all for watching the Slapping Me Wrestling podcast. My name is WeTooDeep. Please leave a comment, like, share, subscribe, leave a review on audio format. And until then, I will see you on the next episode.
So hit that subscribe, come along for the ride. AEW, WWE, we're always on side. From fantasy booking to baddies that slay. Slapping me wrestling every Tuesday.